Hello, everyone. It is Monday, July 25th. I am Kim Lantes joining you live from Dojo Live at Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Joining me is America Guerrero. Hayame.
Hey, from Mexico City.
Mexico City, that's right, represent. So today is our recap show where we're going to be talking about the shows we had last week here on Dojo Live, give you our updates, our opinions, and introduce what we've got coming up this week. So last week we actually had two shows. First up was Peter Sinclair, CEO and founder of Beatbread. And we talked about keeping control, how AI and fintech are putting music artists back in the driver's seat. And then after that, we spoke with Surbi Rathore, who is the CEO and co-founder of Symbol AI. And she talked about the intersection of machine learning and human conversations. So first up, let's talk about Peter. What did you think of that show, America?
What I understood is that definitely technology in the big picture is helping musicians with their work. They gather musicians' data from all over the world and they customize clients' teams in terms to fit their needs. They give reports and then those musicians got funded. That is how I understood that it works. And something that I asked Peter Sinclair that behind that, I assume that there is a big responsibility for these musicians to get to know the world and the world to the musicians. Am I making sense? I really like the conversation. I think that they are doing a really great job. I think that they are in a startup, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're still in the early phases, and it's just an interesting way of getting musicians the funding that they require. I think it can be a small amount, anywhere between, I don't know, like $1,000, or I think they have a cap of around 2 million or something like that. But what I really loved about it is how they're using AI and fintech to sort of, in some ways, level that playing field, right? Making it easier for all types of artists to get the funding that they require to continue on with their career, and in some ways have control, right, in the decision making of how that's going to play out, without having to maybe sign on with a production company or something, earlier, or kind of on their own terms, which I think is a really interesting way to introduce democracy into the music industry. And how they're using that AI is, I think, for them, the way I understood it is for themselves, right, in order to sort of invest wisely.
Exactly. Get to know the market.
And so I think that's really interesting. I loved how they don't discriminate in any music industry whatsoever, like a variety of music genres that I perhaps didn't even know existed. And it's just really fun. I think any tool out there, any company that's out there that can help level the playing field and make things more democratic, it is worth following for sure. Yeah. And then second up was Surbi Rathore, who is with Symbol AI. And this was all about machine learning and human conversation.
Yeah, and they also use data.
Big data, yeah.
Big data
Conversational
from
data.
conversations. Exactly. You're having a sales conversation, and then what this tool is going to help you with analyzing your tone or analyzing the words that you might need to improve during a sales conversation and how this helps you with your communication skills. And it's something that they also use inside the company to improve their communication skills. And something that you mentioned, Kim, about how difficult could be to analyze the culture of another country. For example, you mentioned India, that they do this, like there is a
Yeah,
no.
their
Uh-huh.
their yes is a right to left, which
Uh-huh.
for us is many times interpreted as a no rather than a yes.
Aha. Or here in Mexico, they use say aha a lot. But it doesn't mean that you're being unrespectful or you're not listening. It's just like, yeah, aha, I'm paying attention for. But in English, it's different. And so those are the kind of elements that they are analyzing. That is kind of
Or
hard.
hoping to.
Exactly,
I
hoping
think
to.
what she got to was the idea of, when it comes to human conversation and just how in depth, right? And this has kind of been a theme, I think, that's come up on a lot of Dojo Live shows lately, and that's the need to make connection, right? And the fact that human conversation is one of the largest data sets that any company has, right? And a data set that we're not exactly taking, or very few companies are actually taking advantage of. And I think that's where Symbol comes in. And I thought was interesting is when they're analyzing, conversations, one of the use cases too is to make sure that these conversations aren't kind of siloed, right?
Mhm.
So I think her example was if somebody is in the sales team and they're having a conversation of like, oh, reach out to me in like 6 months, or I prefer to make that type of purchase in the springtime or something like that. It's actually valuable information that, let's say, the marketing team could take advantage of in the campaigns that they're creating and things like that. So it's just this huge data set of conversation, how machine learning takes place. And just, I think it's really exciting to see that growth in human conversation and the absolute complexity of it with, like we were talking about, cultural differences, nuances, and things where I just think it's exciting to me, and I'm really curious where even we as people, right, have a difficulty a lot of times picking up on the nuances that happens in language and in conversation, particularly cross-culturally, but it doesn't have to be cross-culturally and we misinterpret one another, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I think that a day doesn't go by that somebody doesn't have some type of an argument or a disagreement or a misinterpretation of a conversation. And so it's really interesting to me to see if machine learning will ever even catch up to that, or B, go past and beyond our own interpretation and actually help us be better communicators. It's really interesting. But either way, there is conversations, tons of data out there that Symbol AI is helping us to analyze and learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's a great set of really interesting shows, both this last week on Dojo Live. So what do we have coming up this week? We do have one show on the calendar for tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the 26th, 12 o'clock Pacific. That's going to be with Gil Alouche, who is the CEO and founder of Metadata.io. And he's going to be talking about helping B2B marketers automate paid campaigns and answering the question of how changes in B2B marketing have made marketing operations systems a necessary build. So join us tomorrow at 12 o'clock Pacific for that. And we do have 2 more shows on the calendar this week for both Wednesday and Thursday, both at 12 o'clock Pacific. We do not have the topics of those shows quite yet, but we'll be speaking with Amelie Vavrowski of Formally, as well as Anton Pleshtasev of Bravado. So follow us here, Dojo Live, to see how those shows will roll out, and join us tomorrow, 12 o'clock Pacific. See you then.